So you're basically getting an anabolic response in muscle tissue and a catabolic response in fat tissue, which is exactly what we're after. Human growth hormone is a 191 amino acid chain peptide hormone that we use to facilitate muscle growth as well as produce fat loss. And it doesn't directly cause the muscle growth, but it does stimulate the release of insulin-like growth factor 1, which does cause tissue growth as well as some bone growth. But the bone growth is not so much in the length of the bones when it comes to adults, but more so in bone thickness as our growth plates have already fused together. So IGF-1 and growth hormone, they do something very unique, which is that they cause muscle hyperplasia or an increase in overall muscle fibers, whereas something like, say, testosterone or other anabolic androgenic steroids would cause muscle hypertrophy or an increase in the size of the fibers that are already there. Growth hormone also liberates fatty acid into the bloodstream where it's used for energy, and this process is how the growth hormone helps with facilitating fat loss. There's also an insulin response to the excess fatty acids being released, and along with this insulin response and the presence of estrogen and the presence of glucose, the liver responds by producing insulin-like growth factor 1, which, as we said before, provides the actual tissue growth. Now, without the presence of glucose and some estrogen, there will be no release of IGF-1, therefore, no tissue growth. The growth hormone will simply be releasing fatty acids from the cells to provide extra energy. If the IGF-1 is released, then the IGF-1 will not only help facilitate muscle tissue growth, but it will also bind to the insulin receptors on the fat cells and prevent the uptake of nutrients into that fat cell or fat cells, therefore preventing the fat cell's actual growth. So you're basically getting an anabolic response in muscle tissue and a catabolic response in fat tissue, which is exactly what we're after. Now, as far as pharmaceutical grade versus the UGL stuff, it really comes down to the handling of the materials and what happens from manufacturer to distributor to consumer. And I think it's safe to say that actual pharma grade HGH is going to have strictly enforced guidelines and meet conditions that the manufacturer is subject to, whereas HGH made by a manufacturer that isn't regulated by something like the FDA isn't. And it isn't to say that the pharmaceutical grade HGH is actually better and it can't be faked, but I am saying that you'll have more of a consistent quality controlled product going with a prescription GH. And of course, you'll be paying a significantly higher price, but the peace of mind that comes with it, as well as knowing your product was handled with the utmost care, that's unrivaled. Now, if you want to save some money on HGH and still find high quality product, I'll explain exactly how to do that. I'm not saying there isn't any risk involved as far as going through different suppliers and possibly finding that half of them are not legit, but it is well worth it once you find a great source. So what you're going to do is order GH that is highly recommended by some of your peers in the community and preferably by someone who isn't making any money off of this referral or selling it themselves. Then order you a kit if they'll allow you just to get one. And then once you receive your product, you'll reconstitute it and begin injecting 2 IU nightly for 1 week. Sometime during this week of use, schedule your blood work for the following week and specifically order a growth hormone panel through M&M Labs, of course, using my coupon code JLEACTIVE. Now next, the fun stuff. You'll inject 10 IU exactly 1.5 hours before the lab will withdraw blood from your arm, so account for the drive there, check in, and possible 20-minute wait. Then you'll wait on your results, and once received, you want to see the growth hormone marker registering no less than 30 nanograms per milliliter. This means you have a quality product. If it's a little bit under, that's okay too. And if you want to take your growth hormone testing to the next level, you would do the following. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the way to test the quality of the growth hormone. This is a way to find the effective dose for you after you've completed that first step of finding out if it's actual quality growth hormone. So you're going to order an IGF-1 and estradiol marker from M&M Labs again, using my coupon code JLEACTIVE. And remember, if you're using equipoise or nandrolone or trenbolone or a combination, you'll want to get a sensitive estradiol marker. And if you start with a sensitive E2 marker, then you'll want to continue ordering that same one as you follow this protocol. Now, on these labs, we're looking at IGF-1 to be around 300 nanograms per milliliter, using 2 to 3 IU of GH, and estradiol should be in the 20s or 30s in picograms per milliliter. This would be considered a safer number for IGF-1 and estradiol, given the estradiol number in combination with GH isn't causing too much water retention and an increase in blood pressure or increased symptoms of gyno, mood swings, libido issues, or erectile dysfunction. The next step would be to either increase the GH dose by 1 to 2 IU nightly or let estradiol increase to see what your upper tolerance is. And also remember, the estradiol interacts with the GH in the liver, so a little more E2 can increase IGF-1 levels and possibly save you a little money on GH, but you must be diligent with getting blood work done and monitoring blood pressure. Then recheck the same markers after a couple weeks and see what the IGF-1 looks like. And the side effects of using HGH include decreased insulin sensitivity when we ran higher doses for prolonged periods of time, water retention, and this may result in higher blood pressure, pre-existing tumor or cancer growth. So it's best to get cancer screenings before the use of GH, and it will also cause organ growth as well. With anything though, moderation is always best, and this is all going to vary from person to person, and even pushing food very high increases the rate at which cancer grows, so keep that in mind as well.